If you like talking to your favorite filmmakers and discussing your favorite films, then do consider becoming an Abstract member. You will find all the necessary links in our description and I hope to see you there. So what you're about to watch is our conversation with Anusha Rizvi. To remind you guys, she is the co-director of the brilliant film Peepli Live. It was India's official entry for Oscars in 2010. We all know how amazing the film was. Many of us have even watched the film. And this discussion is interesting because we haven't just talked about the film with her, but हमने उनकी family के बारे में, about her childhood influences, about the kind of things she read and watched growing up, इन चीज़ों के बारे में बहुत बातें की हैं. इस सेशन का फॉर्मेट थोड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग है because हमने बहुत ही फ्री फ्लोइंग रखा था इसको ओवरऑल. And I hope this session also gives you an idea about the kind of abstract conversations we have with our guests. All in all, I hope you have a good time listening to this. What kind of books were you reading when you were growing up? What were the other kind of art forms that were there when you were growing up, जिसके साथ आप influence हुए? क्या specific चीजें थी आपने जो करी आप जब बड़े हुए थे?
See, I come from a very academic background, so a large section of my family are professors. My grandfather was a poet, that's my mother's father, and he was also heading the progressive writers movement. So at that time, of course, he was a communist. Actually, you know, when you are a kid and you have people visiting, I mean, for instance, right, like like you're 6 years old or 5 years old, if people are coming to visit your grandfather, you don't really think much of that. But then I gradually, as I grew up, I realized that these are people of some sort of standing, or they are great poets, or now I realize their value because I do have read their works. But at that time, while you're a kid, it's just, okay, friends. There was a lot of that. And definitely, my father was a professor. Both sides of my family, we have a lot of teachers. So yeah, actually those have been my influences. Literature has been a very, very important part of my family life as well. My father also used to write. My mother used to write as a writer. My grandfather was he was a very renowned poet. There were plenty of writing going on. Also, so dinner was a very big thing where everybody had to come and everybody had to sit together. And the conversation was largely literary. Of course, literary politics as well, like who did what and who got which award and all that, but within that sort of realm.
Does it happen that the kind of environment you sort of grow up in, like it happens to a lot of people? I want to know how do you perceive it, but the kind of things that you grew up with, अगर आपका उसके अच्छा relationship नहीं रहा हो, so you try to be as away from it as possible. You try to be as apprehensive of it as possible. Like I know a couple of my friends who, because उनके parents इतना literature पढ़ते थे, दिन भर घर में उन्हीं की बातें होती थी, तो they used to sort of get apprehensive of talking about it as they were growing up. Do these things happen like in any way?
I think so, because I think that for one, you start to take it for granted because then everybody's chatting about it all the time. Then also it seems, and your peers are not, right? Like in school, not everybody is talking about like Wuthering Heights at that age or anything. So you feel like, oh my God, I'm the odd one out. So maybe this is not such a great thing after all.
How do you think growing up in an environment of poetry shaped your visuals as a director, or how you tell a story? Because I think as poets, we think differently from writers, right? So a lot of writers find the screenwriting transition to be very different from how a poet might find it, or someone who's grown up reading poetry or has a famous poet in their house for that matter. So what was that transition like, and how did it contribute to your writing process?
It's a very interesting question, because I'm now trying to sort of see it in that way. Nobody's ever asked me this. Poetry actually has been a very integral part of my life, not because so much of me being, a poet at all, ever, or having great interest in it, but somehow because it was there in the house and because a lot of conversation was happening around it. I know a lot of Urdu poetry, for instance. It's something that I know. I mean, it's not something I've picked up consciously. It is not something that I'm interested in consciously, but I know it a lot. So a lot of times when I'm writing, appropriate share can sum up something that you would try and write in like many, many words, but that one couplet can sum it up. And some poetry, of course, is divine. I mean, it is, but I'm not sure I can say with any surety how much it has affected my visual sense. I'm not even sure how developed my individual sense is for me to say that I have got it developed through this poetic. I think that maybe it might happen later. I will have to do a lot of mushakkat for it.
When it came out, I was probably just 9 years old, 10 years old, मुश्किल से. I think जब तीर पे पहली बार आ रही थी, तो मैंने बोला ये पीपली लाइव क्यों है नाम इसका? And मेरा दिमाग 9 साल का है, तो and I used to watch a lot of cricket. So जब भी कोई टेलीकास्ट होता है मैच का तो लाइव लिखा आता है, and highlights तो highlights लिखा आता है. I'm like, तो यार ये फिल्म कुछ अलग तरीके से बनाई गई है क्या? मतलब like, is it like live? Is it like happening over there? हाँ, I don't know what was happening. I was like, कुछ तो अलग चल रहा है शायद, पता नहीं. I obviously
that's a very pertinent, observation. के ये could be, that's what the name could mean.
Yeah, and because there are stills of the entire film, are so many journalists over there. I'm like, कि शायद live चली रही है. कि ये तो किस पे आ रही है? तो ये ZTV पे कैसे आ रही है? I don't remember किस पे आ रही थी, but ये ZTV पे क्यों आ रही है ये फिर? Like बहुत ही मैं confused चल रहा था बचपन में इस फिल्म को लेके. What does it make you feel when somebody says that आपकी फिल्म तो आज भी relevant है? Like, does it make you happy, proud, or does it make you worried?
It's quite a mixed bag actually, because so relevant है, that's all. It's true. I mean, it's a take on the media which is like really screwing us up right now. But and I think that the initial, I mean, now all of these people saying कि oh, it happened now, it happened only after Modi, but that's not true at all. It has happened. It was the process, and it happened then. So it's not like post Modi era has sort of pushed the media. They have just gone a step further. That's it. So, but they're very much in the process of going into that space. But on the other hand, what happens is that you get approached for similar kind of material. कि ऐसे ही बनेगा. या if you try and do, तो हमने तो सोचा था कि ये Peepli life type film होगी. But not every time you want to write a Peepli life type story, na? So that kind of also is there.
One of the reasons why it's one of my favorite films is satire is a different space to navigate in general. I mean, if you read Jonathan Swift with The Modest Proposal and everything, you have to not be making fun. You have to not be making fun of the people who are the subject of the satire, right? You cannot be punching down. And in Peepli Live, I saw that like there was no objectification of poverty, and it was not inviting us to see how bad things are, and it wasn't poverty porn in a way. I mean, it was humorous, of course. It wasn't funny, as in we weren't laughing at, hey, look at what's going on with this guy. But we weren't also, completely saddened by the fact that, oh God, I feel so much pity for this man right now. It came across as the character is a good vessel for a satire. So how do you end up navigating that space, especially in today's time where you're writing about someone who's oppressed, but you don't want your audience to think, oh, now this is another film about someone who's oppressed?
First of all, people are poor and people are oppressed and people are in very, very bad positions. But that still does not take away the fact that they have a life. I mean, they're living a life which also has moments of joy, has also moments of happiness, and within that oppression also they find ways to have agency. I mean, I knew right from the beginning that I'm not out there to make a do biga zameen, because my farmer is not, he is hori too. He is hori too in a way. Okay, sorry, this mad cat, this is Anton. That kind of filmmaking, I think for me is not relevant today, because I think that kind of a pitying look, like a Premchand character, I am not creating that character, because I do know that character, that oppressed man, also has some amount of agency, like Mehta, who decides, he goes till a certain extent, but then he says no, he does show his agency. Or Budhia even, who's equally oppressed, and why he's doing what he's doing is out of that oppression. But he is also a certain kind of cunning man. So, poverty or oppression does not take away individuality. And that's what we tend to do, that when we talk about people who we feel are underprivileged or whatever, we tend to either make them into saintly characters, which they are not. They are humans, normal human beings with all kinds of flaws and all kinds of, good qualities about them. And that's how they should be treated and seen, as humans, neither as this downtrodden saintly figure, nor a downtrodden oppressed figure about to die.
So you have been a journalist. So how much of the film is based on your experience? And is there any funny instances that you used in the film? And Like it
It's totally
actually
based on my
happened.
experiences. The journalistic part of it is totally based on true experiences because I could see what's happening. I mean, that's the main reason I didn't want to continue with journalism, because I could see that this is the trend. This is what we are moving towards.
Yeah.
You have these star reporters and who are doing all kinds of gimmicks and all kinds. This is not true reporting as true journalism goes. You take, all those values of true journalism,
Hmm.
they were not being displayed at all.
Like where did you work, by the way, while being a
NDTV.
journalist? Okay, so like
NDTV.
what was the first day like? What was the first day of getting into the job like? And क्या reality check मिले आपको about studying about it and actually working on it?
See, the first day was obviously very exciting for me because your first question about family and all that. So I had just gotten out of college and I wasn't very sure what I wanted to do. And here I was offered a job at NDTV at 21. I was getting a lot of, I mean, at that time, and for me at that time, that was a lot of money that I was being offered. So it made absolutely no sense to pursue a master's degree or do a PhD or go and teach or whatever that the regular trajectory would have been. So it was great. I mean, wow, straight out of college, you've got a job. They're an upcoming great organization. So it was really exciting, especially the first the first year actually. And then it kind of, then the charm kind of wears off and you begin to see a little below the surface as well. And you realize what all is. And when you grow in the organization as well, I guess, then you realize what all is happening. And then Kargil happened. You won't remember, but Kargil happened, and that was a big point for me because I just couldn't understand the reporting at that time. Because see, whatever said and done, we are an Indian channel, and you're an Indian reporter, and we obviously want India to win, and all of that. True, but as a journalist, when you take up certain positions and certain situations were, I think, very unpalatable to me.
What are those things where morals get a little shaky? Who do you actually end up serving? Matlab, as a journalist, are you
End up
is it about
serving
the
yourself.
organization
You
more?
only serve yourself by hanging on to the TRP game. You basically, you want your mug on the TV, right? So you will write a story so that you get enough eyeballs and you get higher TRP. The TRP game has been going on right from the beginning of news. Ever since we've had TV news coming on, and that was NDTV really, actually, which started it. The TRP has been the thing. And so the more sensation you have on the news, the more TRP you get. And it just escalates. The more obnoxious you are, and then more, and then more, and then...
Your take on the kind of comedy / social message films that have been coming in the last 5-10 years, like just simply बताऊं तो the Ayushman era, or the Ayushman / Rajkumar Rao era, where social taboo things are being talked with the help of comedy. उनका जो formula है, उनका जो template है, do you think there's anything problematic about it, or do you think that it's actually helping people understand? Like, how do you see that in comparison to other satires that you might have seen growing up, or your own film for that matter?
I don't personally think that you should tell films or performance or whatever. They're about the story that you want to tell. They're not about messaging. You can't decide that मुझे आज अब की बार मैं फीमेल इन्फेंटिसाइड के ऊपर फिल्म बनाऊंगी, या अब की बार मैं जो है ना डाउरी डेथ के ऊपर फिल्म बनाऊंगी. एटलीस्ट आई कैन नॉट डू इट लाइक दैट. इफ आई लाइक अ स्टोरी, एंड a lot of times I like a character, then I want to do that. I mean, I want to. So for instance, there is a story that I'm working on. I'll just tell you the brief. The main character, I started with the character. There was no story around her, but this one character I found like fascinating, and that's what I am developing around. There's this woman. I mean, no, she's now a fictional woman in my head, but a woman whose son is a driver in a like area like Delhi or Bombay, but he's her only son, but she has actually raised him by begging. So she's used to begging, and her son now, because he has gone up on the social ladder and he's a driver, he doesn't want her to beg. But the whole conflict between the son and mother is that she, according to her profession is begging. She's not doing it, whatever, it's her profession. So she also has some certain amount of pride on it. So how is he to stop her? And she has her agency. That and it's a real life character, by the way, and I find that character totally amazingly fascinating. So then I have a story around her. But if there is a message to it, or if there is anything that comes out of it organically.
But one scene, and it's very fascinating for me, is about this guy who is being कहते वो मिट्टी खोद रहा होता है, and this Nawazuddin Siddiqui जाता है, and I remember the whole film, like I do not connect with humor that much. I am not very funny कहते thing, and I like उतने कहते funny characters or funny things in life, but I'm very much interested in that, like throughout the whole film, this one scene where Nawaz always goes to that person and this person dies, and in a sort of way there's something dies, not just in that village or with that person, but throughout the audience, and you feel a certain detachment from the scene कि अच्छा अभी तक तो ये हो रहा था and अचानक कोई मर जाता है, and there's this thing. I just wanted to know that what was your idea behind it. I do not want you to say ki acha I was thinking about this, and like you just wanted to do, but yeah, I just wanted to find that scene very fascinating.
So Hori is a very thought out, conscious and stylized sequences. Hori is from Premchand, it definitely from Godan. He is definitely, it is to also reiterate over and over again a continuity in a way के जब 100 साल पहले जब प्रेमचंद लिख रहे हैं तो वो जिस दुर्दशा की बात कर रहे हैं वो दुर्दशा अभी तक बदली नहीं है, वो एक कंटिन्यूटी है जो अभी भी मौजूद है हमारे गांव में लोग मिट्टी खोद के बेच के साइकिल पे लाद के 50 किलोमीटर जाके मिट्टी बेचते हैं, उससे वो 9 रुपए कमाते हैं, फिर वो लौटते हैं, उनका डेली का काम है. So this is also a reality. So what it's juxtaposed against is this world where the media is trying to capture one story, but there is also this other story जिस पे किसी की नजर नहीं है और ना interesting है, ना it's not sexy enough for anyone. So
and there are so many stories like that. Yeah, there are so many stories like that that's not getting.
There's so many stories like that, right? As she says as well, na towards the end कि अब वो ठीक है, वो story भी हो जाएगी, but this is the story you have to follow. Natha is the story, not Hori, and that's the thing. That's also the journalistic thing, right? कि वो story वो नहीं है, story ये है. What do you put your resources in this, not in that? And Nawaz's character coming to the realization that is also a story is the breaking point for him with the Nandita character, because that's not what she is expecting him to do. She wants him to follow Natha's story and not waste time or resources doing something else. But he is not able to bring himself to do it.
It's been around 12 years since the movie has released. So do you think about this movie often? Or how often do you think about your own movie?
I try very hard not to think about it, and I don't. I mean, thankfully, but of course I do once in a while. And like today, for instance, that now that I'm talking to you guys, of course I am. But no, it's not a very. I mean, there are other things that I'm doing. There is I don't know if you guys know that I produce Dastan Goi. So there is this art form that my husband has revived, and I've been producing it for the last 17 years. Now it's become it was a dead art form, which has now become fully revived. So for the last 17 years, we've been doing shows and reviving the art form on many levels now. Absolutely throughout India, we've performed it. We've also performed abroad. So yeah, so I'm also doing those things, and I'm also involved in a documentary. There are a few series that I've been working on, which are very different in tone and in subject matter from Peepli life. So those are also things that are happening. So you don't always then think back on Peepli. Of course, you do once in a while, but not always.
What do you think about when you think about it? Like if you're comfortable in sharing that, or do you just think about any scenario? Or what do you ponder over whenever you think about people like your own film? So you will be able to provide a great insight.
I don't know. I mean, maybe.
आपको लगता है कभी कि अगर ऑस्कर मिल गया होता तो यार क्या सही होता?
हाँ, of course, ऑस्कर मिल गया होता तो. But मुझे इतना कभी मुगालता था नहीं, क्योंकि the thing is with Oscar, you get the Oscar if you have the money to spend on it. Okay. We don't have, मतलब मेरा अगर producer मतलब अडानी अंबानी भी होगा ना, तो they don't have that kind of money to push a film through the whole, that system is very tight, you know. It's like some 500 people, each one of them have to watch your film, each one of them have to watch it in a theater, so it has to release in North America, it's a very expensive process, and for any producer in India, it's backbreak. I don't think कि इतना पैसा कोई लगा सकता है.
How did you come about with this cast? Was it something that very organically came into being, like you knew them and the story kind of, or like you like really went out and scouting for these people?
So my husband Mahmood Faruqi did the casting, and it was very extensive. Like they did auditions for like 900 people, and they auditioned everywhere. They auditioned like in all smaller cities, into Jabalpur to Bhopal to UP, Lucknow, सब जगह auditions का room set up करके we did auditions with everyone. We were very close to Habib Tanvir's Naya Theatre, so a lot of the actors have come from there, and that was a big boon, I have to say, because for one, they were trained actors, so they know what it is, and they are like superb actors. They're like physical actors. They can do comedy. They're like superb. So a lot of them were that, but I had not. So two main characters we hadn't found. We did everything. We found every character, but two main characters we didn't find. We didn't find Amma, and we didn't find Natta till the almost the end, like last week. I saw one of the performances of Omkar, who plays Natta, was Habib Saab junior actor, and I saw one of the performances where I saw him, and I was like, oh my god, this is the guy. So we sent a team to Bhopal and got an audition done from him. So to my mind, he was like, okay, this is the guy. But at that time, Amir was still into like he really wanted to play Natha, and he was still toying with the idea of being able to do it, pull it off somehow. I'll lose weight, I'll do this, I'll do that. And I was pretty sure there's no way he can pull it off. So when I showed him Omkar's photo, I said, Amir, can you become this? Because this is what it is. And he also had to then concede that, okay, I mean, no, I can't match him. So he kind of conceded that, but then still we hadn't got Amma. And that was, it was a very interesting journey to find her, because there are a lot of the old actresses, for one, they're not acting anymore. Two, when they don't want to appear on screen in a particular way, they want to appear on screen still as the diva that they were. And also a lot of time they are not very good verbally in terms of dialects or picking up different languages and all that. So we went through all of those, and none was working. We went to the railway station and we started picking on beggar women of this age group who were fluent in, like, who we heard, and we realized that they are very good speakers, or they are like fast speakers. So we used to call them for auditions. And that was an experience because, of course, the Amir Khan production office was completely stunned at the fact that one after the other, there's this line of beggar women who were coming in and out. But also that some of them were like super abusive, or were like, had a few drinks down. So it was very interesting, but it didn't kind of work, because in Bombay railway stations and all that, people were picking were largely Maharashtrian women, and or women who had a different accent. So although we found two people who were like perfect, but they had such a strong Marathi accent that we couldn't have replaced them like in a UP setup. At that time, one of my assistants saw one background actor in Pardes. So she said that there's this old woman there. Do you want to try her out? And so we went looking for her, and we found Farooq Jafar in Lucknow.
Throughout the movie, there is constant mention of death. Like starting, maybe they are like, "Arey tu mar ja, nahi tu mar ja," and he's like, "Okay, मैं मर जाता हूँ," and he's like, "एक काम कर तू ही मर." So it's like the way we talk about death, it's a bit sensitized, like a lot sensitized, obviously, and the way they talk about death it's pretty desensitized, because it's obvious, like, because their basic needs are not met and all. How did you detach yourself from like the sensitized thought that we generally have about that? Because in the movie, except Nawaz sir, I think there were very few people who were actually sensitized about his death. How did you not let your emotions affect the portrayal of reality of their life?
See, the thing is that the film started with a very basic premise that when Manmohan Singh announced a package of 50,000 rupees for farmers who had died. So the idea behind it is that if those farmers, for instance, were alive, You would not pay them. So what brings in the money is the death. So then death becomes the core, the center of the idea, which is why therefore death is also, I mean, death is there always, but also in a particular situation where you have farmer suicides, you have like epidemic of farmer suicides. And at that time, when the film was conceived, it was the numbers were very, very high. It's only now that the numbers have somewhat come down. So life basically had no value. One is trying to say that a live farmer is no value farmer. It's a dead farmer who has some value.
This is more of an observation, I think. And I hate using the word meta because, no one really knows what it means, me included. But I think Peepli Live makes this meta sort of observation about how we grow desensitized to satire itself because of the news cycles we follow. So if you read something by Premchand right now, or like Kafan, it may not be all that shocking for you because right now what you're seeing in the news is just people cutting up other people and, all of that. So like, ye to theek hai, like whatever these two guys are doing is fine. Manto, when he came, it was extremely shocking for everyone involved. Like I've only heard stories. Right now, we read Manto with a very detached, I don't think it's the same emotion, and we haven't lived through the partition, so we wouldn't know that in any way. So I think Peepli Live did this rather excellent job of telling us that our sensitivity towards satire itself is shaped by media we consume and the way situations were being portrayed by the media in Peepli Live, like what the news media's audience was supposed to see was exactly the sort of thing that would have desensitized them to the death. Okay. And I think that's where it became a really dark story for me. कि मैंने farmer suicides पे इतनी चीजें देखी हैं और इतनी पढ़ी हैं कि अब ये film farmer suicide पे है, its satire is working for me. Like it's hitting me and everything. And right now, like, with rising fascism and all of that, we are growing desensitized to a lot of that either. That also. So I think satire exists in time, right? And I think Peepli Live existed in the perfect time for it to exist. I think if the same film comes out now, it's not extremely shocking to me because now I'm used to seeing animations of refrigerators opening up and dead bodies coming out of it on my news cycle. And I think that's one of the points Peepli Live makes. Now, when I saw the film again, this time, like this is what I felt really like. This is one of the most major observations that I have, that the very film itself is telling you it won't.
The sequence where towards the end, the sequence where then Deepak is searching for Natha and then he finds the pile of shit and then he goes look. So a lot of people felt that I have gone overboard with it and that it's the aise nahi hota aur aise kabhi nahi ho, and that's going a bit overboard, and it's not, as we can see, it's not going overboard at all. So also, India is such a place where now satire has lost its meaning because so much in reality is happening that life is definitely, truth is stranger than fiction.
Since you have been a journalist previously, I just wanted to ask you, like you have seen, like what you said earlier, that the seeds were sown earlier back then, and we are seeing the reaping results of what was sown back then. My question is, how do you see this getting forward? Like, do you see this waning off over the time, or do you see that this type of fanatic journalism kind of thing, where they are, it's clearly looking like religious and communal way of doing the journalism and the bootlicking kind of journalism? Do you see this reaching a particular saturation point, or do you see that people eventually outgrowing this kind of journalism and moving towards more what's real and what's real issues are towards each of them? And how do you see these kind of films getting more way towards people's life and way towards understanding of how they get to it?
I think what will happen is that although these outlets will remain and they will have the money just because the industry is pushing them, but there will be also alternate media outlets or media platforms which will start springing up, and they're already doing so. There's, for instance, a Scroll, a Wire, Article 14, there is Leaflet, there is. So it's not as if those voices are not there. They are also there, but we will have to find them and make sure that we support them. Make sure that, they have enough backing and that they have enough readers, for instance. We make sure that, they are they're back. There used to be this thing called the Caravan magazine. They're there. They're still there. I mean, yes, a lot of them have gone there. A lot of had crumbled into dust, but some of them are still standing. And we should allow them to become our voices, and we should also support them.
For filmmakers and for viewers of cinema, like people have two identities. If a person is a filmmaker, they also view cinema and they also make them. And for people like us who talk about cinema and who watch cinema, how can we use art to understand the world better, according to you? As a community jo hamari hai ye, any feedback on how we can actually have conversations that probably have an impact on people? And these are not just echo chambers in that way. Like what any feedback in that sense as well?
It's not about being a large or a small community, but any community which is open to this conversation, is opening, have these questions, is discussing these things, automatically is gaining a lot, because what you are thinking, I am now listening to, and what I think you are listening to. So even though you may not agree with me or may not agree with me entirely, but you will have some part of you will think about what I've said, or some part of me will think about what you've said. And that is what it is. I mean, that is the most important thing, that you try and communicate, try and understand each other, which is what has happened now, that nobody seems to want to hear anyone else. I mean, everybody has preconceived notions about the other, and no one wants to bother or to give even an inch. In communities like this, what happens is that you come together and you are open, you come to it with an open mind, that you are here to share and here to accept ideas. And I think that's great. And also we have to, I mean, people like us only have to find these alternate platforms and be there and be responsive to them and encourage them, so that the mainstream news media that has become a hawa onto us and is just sucking the life out of us gets sidelined, or at least gets pushed away from our individual lives. And this cycle of disinformation that we have got caught into has to somewhere stop.